Assalamu alaikum. You're watching Views and News, and I'm Faisal Rahman live from our Islamabad studios. Today, we'll be talking about the ongoing atrocities in the Indian occupied Kashmir. Obviously, whenever I switch on the television, I always see stories coming out of Syria, Aleppo. You talk about some issues regarding Europe. Sometimes people do say that we have forgotten about Yemen, but obviously that is a story and a half. Americans are applying a lot of pressure on the Saudi government to sort of at least negotiate and come to a conclusion. But unfortunately, no one has ever talked about Kashmir. I mean, at the moment, the Indian soldiers, we have also realized that the number is no more 750,000 troops. The real number is around 1 million now. That is what the figures tell us. And around 500 reserve. So you're talking about 1.5 million practically men in uniform are present in the Indian held Kashmir to look after the affairs. So definitely there's something, but nobody talks about it. The second point which I really want to raise and highlight is that it's about the human rights abuse. So many people were killed. We did talk about almost 150 casualties, but nobody talks about those thousands of youngsters who've been blinded by the Indian forces as they use these pellet guns. And whenever we talk about the pellet guns, they're like the 12-bore shotgun. And imagine you using the cartridges, which is around number 8 or 10 maybe. And you just spray those on their faces. Imagine that. Then you talk about the killings, the kidnappings, and the absolute surrender of certain areas where there are people who really want to talk about their freedom. They are out in the streets, but unfortunately nothing is happening. Nobody's covering those stories. We talk about the death of Burhan. We all know that almost the entire Kashmir was out for his for the prayers, but the point was again that for some reason the Indian media has maligned it and made it look like as if he was a terrorist, though he was a freedom fighter asking for the freedom of his own people who've been suppressed. And exactly this is what we'll be talking about in our program, the lost story of Kashmir. Let me introduce you to our panelists. We have with us on my right is Air Vice Marshal retired Faaiz Amir sir. Thank you very much, sir, for taking out your time. We also have with us Mushaal Mullick. Needs no introduction, is a senior leader, the wife of, I'll always remind you, that gentleman who is still sacrificing, who has sacrificed, and the lady is the wife of none other than Yassin Malik. Thank you very much, ma'am, for taking out your time. And we have with us Nafees Zakaria, sir, the Foreign Office spokesperson. Thank you very much, sir, for taking out your time. So first of all, we do talk about the red helmets. Somebody was telling me that hundreds and millions of dollars are spent by the Americans, by the British, and by the other European countries. And this idea came up in the mind of one of the British soldiers in 2013. And then that money was spent that these are the people who will be looking after the affair with their problems. And they'll report, and those reports will be considered authentic. Interestingly, nobody is present in Aleppo to look after those affairs because stories are being created by the Western world, sir. The true picture, you put on RT, it's a different ball game. You put on CNN, it's a different narrative altogether. But when you talk about Kashmir, sir, we hardly hear, forget about the human rights observers or all these groups. The whole world is siding India. So now what do we need to do?
Well, you mentioned the red helmets. I heard about the white helmets.
White helmets, actually. Sorry.
White helmets in Aleppo. And there was a Canadian female reporter in Aleppo, and she reported that all these white helmets and other sources that the USA is relying upon so heavily are actually compromised. Actually, they do not exist in Aleppo, but they exist only in offices in Europe somewhere, and from where they are giving these stories. In Kashmir, when you come down to Kashmir, I think a certain responsibility lies with Pakistan, because Pakistan is a recognized party to the Kashmir dispute by the UN General Assembly resolutions, and so are the people of Kashmir, who are a party to this whole conflict that is brewing very badly and very strongly in Kashmir. we have failed and we have ignored Kashmir for a very long time. We have given it a lip service for a very long time. Just look at the events of last 3 months. When the Pakistani media had taken up the cause of Kashmir after Burhan Wani's murder and after over 100 people were killed and dozens were maimed and scores were injured and hundreds were injured, suddenly we
15,000, around 15,000.
It's more than 17,000.
17,000 now, sir?
Yeah.
We had a spate of LOC firing incidents where over 40 people on Pakistani side died in Kashmir and hundreds were injured. So suddenly the Pakistani media forgot all about Kashmir and started talking about the LOC and the LOC violations and the intensity of Indian fire at LOC and its implications. We suddenly forgot that these were the tactics India was using to
divert the
attention.
Exactly.
And we fell prey to it. We fell so happily prey to it that we almost forgot about Kashmir. The point that I want to make here is that probably there has to be a consistent policy on Kashmir that we need to pursue. And that is where we probably have failed. We have, just like as we mentioned that our relationship with US is transactional, probably our relationship or our sensitivity to Kashmir also becomes sometimes transactional. We go by event to event. Before
I totally agree with
September, before September 2016, there was not a mention on the Pakistani media unless in July, Burhan Wani was murdered by the Indian forces in Kashmir, and then we started picking up from there onwards. But this movement in Kashmir has been going on, and as all the older members of the Kashmir movement have actually confessed that the movement has gone out of their hands to the youth, to the new generation.
Yeah.
And let me remind you, it is very significant that 87 Indian army and Indian law enforcing agencies, army people have been killed in the last just this year in 2016, and hundreds have been injured. So it just speaks of the intensity of the emotions or intensity of the movement that the Kashmiri youth is pursuing it. So I think that all along this movement has been building up in Kashmir, but we have remained ignorant and we have not taken up their cause effectively.
All right. Now moving on to you, Mushaal. First of all, please do tell us about the health of Mr. Yasin Mullick. We heard that he wasn't well. He was very sick and he wasn't having the access to the hospital. Then we saw a couple of very disturbing pictures. What is the current situation? Would you like to please throw light on that?
He's very fragile and weak these days, and he has to get his kidneys operated.
Operated?
Yes, because he has a few stones in them, because for almost 5 days he was not given water when he was in the interrogation center. So his kidneys dehydrated. So, but after that poisonous injection that was given to him
in his arm,
yes, end of October, when he was shifted to some substandard dispensary in Srinagar, late at night, the Indian forces, they took him without any proper, prescription from his doctors, and he was given this dye injection. That's the name of the injection. They give that when you have to get the CT scan, but it was injected in a very thin vein, so it bursted and it was all over.
So that was the reason for the swelling and everything?
Yes, it was poisonous. But even then he could not get medical attention. So even right now his right arm is not in a workable position. It's semi-paralyzed, and it's winters over there, and it's really cold, and the doctors are still worried that he's in a very fragile position. How will they operate his kidneys, because his renal function has been badly affected. But that is part of it. It's been happening before also with Yasin. He has been tortured many a times. But the main question is that how long, how much more sacrifices are the Kashmiri people going to give, and then will the world finally speak up for us? Will the criminal silence end? And even right now what's happening over there, I mean, he has been released, but every second day whenever he has to have a political activity, a jalsa, or even if he has to go to Burhan Wani's house to mourn the death of the martyrs, he's not being allowed, and then he has to go into hiding for 2 nights in different places, and the entire valley and their search operations after him, and he's already very sick and in such a condition, traveling to South Kashmir and other places to meet Insha Mullick, one of the pellet weapon victims. freedoms. So now they have already there's a lot of police and army outside our house in Maisuma, but now they have appointed a few motorcycles, men on them, Indian Army and Indian police officers, and they are following him everywhere like watchdogs. Wherever he goes, even if he goes to a barber shop or to his relatives, and then they interrogate the people. So they're harassing him 24/7. He's not allowed any kind of freedom.
That's very, very tragic. Now, sir, I was just thinking about this, Zakaria sir. Obviously, you're the spokesperson of the Foreign Office. You're the voice of the government. So when we talk about media, because now I guess somebody said that when you conquer a country, you need to conquer through land, through sea, and through air. And now the new method is through the cyberspace. So you talk about media in particular, whether it's Facebook, whether it's Twitter, whether it's WhatsApp, or whether it's you talk about other tools.
Social media in
social media in general, and media in particular. So I happen to go to NDU many times, and I see the flags of certain countries, and we call them the friendly countries. Can't we have a mechanism that all these friendly, so-called the friendly countries, or the friends of Pakistan for that matter, that we can actually give a certain footage, because this is the most important cause. The first time when I picked up the book of Pakistan studies, the first was about the Kashmir issue, sir. First and the foremost. Can't we give them the footage so that they can run on their television channels to at least highlight the cause, sir? Because Pakistani media is limited. This is the only English channel which people can understand. How many people would understand Urdu otherwise? Have you ever thought on out-of-the-box solutions, sir? Because enough has been done, nothing, we haven't gained anything so far, sir.
Assalamu alaikum. First of all, I must say that these are very sad moments. What we see, what happens in Indian occupied Kashmir, and the expectations of those Kashmiris who are rendering sacrifices for all ages now, and they are not being really heard the way it should have been heard.
Yes, sir.
And somebody very rightly mentioned or referred to the references to what's happening in other parts of the world. I think those references are very relevant in the sense that the motives are different. We need to really understand that we need to really come to grip the situation that where we want to take it from here. You see, we can keep talking about what happened in the past, and then we can, regret if there were any, shortfall or any setbacks to our efforts. I think what we need to do is to continuously make concerted efforts,
Sure.
constant effort of highlighting what these Kashmiris are actually facing in Indian occupied Kashmir. You were giving the figures. Let me just set the record straight, actually. Now, we were talking until lately, we had been talking about the pallet victims were in the range of 1,000 or so. I have recently come across a report which says the pallet victims are more than 6,000.
6,000?
Yes. And we talked about, now, as I was coming to this place, I was reading through the Human Rights Watch report, which has been published. They have been quite honest in reflecting the plight of those who have been arrested and killed in the custody of the Indian police. This is one thing which needs to be raised. There are many aspects to what happens in Kashmir. What Marshal Saab was referring to media not covering it. Actually, we have to see that they have actually blacked out everything on what happens in that huge prison, the biggest prison on earth, where they have 1 million Indian forces, hounding these Kashmiris, defenseless Kashmiris. They have killed.
Is that also a correct figure? Because according to my information,
yes, because
it used to be
700,000.
Now they've raised it to 1 million.
700,000 is the regular forces who are there, stationed there, and then there are 300,000 who are paramilitary forces. Okay, so that makes for every 12 Kashmiris there is one
soldier.
fully armed person over there to torture them. There had been cases of massacres in the past, and it is continuously happening. There have been moments when the genocide of Kashmiris took place. We look at November 1947, and as we approach this time, we will see throughout this period that the genocide has been taking place time and again. There had been crimes against humanity. Women have been, I think, the biggest victim of the Indian atrocities. Children have been the biggest victims of Indian atrocities. We have to look at it from various angles. If one has to go after accountability of these Indian occupation forces in Kashmir for their crimes against humanity, there are such a large number of events, large number of atrocities, act of state terrorism which they have perpetrated there, that I think if they start the accountability, it may go on for ages. The actual thing is that whether the world is listening. Now, as far as I'm concerned, the government of Pakistan is fully focused, making every effort, especially from the day Burhan Wani's extrajudicial killing took place, and after that, the way the defenseless Kashmiris have been martyred. The children, the most heinous crime is the blinding of children.
Youth. They are targeting youth by design. Yeah.
They have actually blinded one generation over. Okay. Now, this is what we are highlighting. What we have done is not only that we have gone to the UN, we have gone to the other multilateral forums and also the major powers, but we have also gone to the civil societies in various countries. The Pakistani diaspora is working. Kashmiri diaspora is instrumental. There are people who have come forward by themselves. There are several incidents, several things I can quote in this regard, that how civil society members alongside the member of parliaments of those regions and the diaspora, Kashmiri diaspora and Pakistani diaspora and many other people who are actually working, and every second day or third day there is an event taking place to sensitize the international community, the local community. You are talking about the channel, the means of communication. Rest assured that the message is going out, regardless that Indians have actually blocked the transmission from the valley or from there.
Sir, I'll just share something over here, sir. Whenever I do a show on Kashmir, so obviously the IT department, they upload the program on either on YouTube or on Daily Motion. They always block my page, sir.
Yes.
Even those programs which were uploaded earlier, they've taken them off. So they have that kind of a control over that no wonder he goes to meet the head of the Facebook, or he goes to meet those people in Silicon Valley when I talk about Modi, rather than addressing the UN General Assembly.
Because it's in English.
So
we need to lodge the complaint.
Absolutely, sir.
We need to lodge the complaint.
So that is what I'm saying. I mean, now it was blocked for 7 days, and we couldn't upload. So I told my IT guy that you can keep a record of those programs and then try to put them on with some other name. The moment the word Kashmir comes in,
yeah, but you should reach out to these and reach out to us. Tell us about this thing, so that we are able to forward that complaint to the relevant
interestingly,
authorities.
this is the only English channel in Pakistan. No, Faaiz, you are the Vice Chancellor of a very good university also. And so when we talk about engagement of youth, we have a huge number of when you talk about students in particular and the university going age, I keep on seeing that a lot is happening in a university. Are we also focusing, I mean, I'm just taking the example of your university because this is one of the best universities in Islamabad, as we say. Don't you think, sir, it's high time that in the universities, certain seminars should be conducted? The youth should be told on almost daily basis that, look, this is what they are doing, this is what they're sacrificing for. Obviously, Kashmir, if Quaid-e-Azam said that this is the jugular vein of Pakistan, that means something. So if they are sacrificing, they're also sacrificing for us. And we have to do something in return, sir.
Yes, let me pick up some points
Please
from
go ahead,
Mr. Nafees Zakaria. He talked about the civil society delegations. There was recently a civil society delegation that went to Kashmir from India. It was led by one of their former Rajya Sabha member, Mr. Kamal Morarka. And his report is eye-opening for everyone. I think we don't need to do a program in Kashmir. We just need to highlight what he said. Let me read. He says, I was shocked during my stay in Kashmir. There is no democracy, no civil rights for common people. You can't hold a peaceful demonstration while disproportionate force is used by the government to muzzle the voice of the people. Despite enjoying special status, Kashmir has become a hell due to wrong approach of the state and central governments. Now, these are very strong words to be used by a former minister, legislator and a former minister of union government. I think that gives us the essence of what is happening in Kashmir, and that probably I must admit that we have not been talking about Kashmir in those strong words that this gentleman has come out. As about your question on students, we do make efforts. We do make efforts, but they are occasional. They are, I would say,
on certain days.
On certain days,
yes.
they are occasional. We do make efforts to bring the issue to our students in various forms. Sometimes these are in forms of seminars, or sometimes these are in forms of lectures by eminent speakers. The efforts are made, but they need to hear it from the horse's mouth. They need to hear from the government leaders, national leaders. It is not the university leadership. We need to tell them, we educate them, but more has to come, and I would like to believe what Mr. Nafees Zakaria was saying, that their efforts, but more is required within our own, because the narrative in Kashmir, like many other narratives, is incomplete. In our own national debate, there's hardly a debate, I would say, on Kashmir. So we need to have a Kashmir debate, and as Mr. Nafees Zakaria was mentioning, we need to work out a way forward, because presently we have a destructive equilibrium with India, where we both are trying to force our way or just take very rigid stance on our own positions and threaten each other with very severe consequences. But there has to be a constructive equilibrium between the two neighbors, and that narrative must be built within the country. I think we lack that kind of a positive stance, positive statements and positive narrative by the leadership, political leadership of the country. We are still going from event to event, and we are concentrating more on less important issues of the national importance than the issue that probably warrants our immediate attention, that is Kashmir. But I go along with you that there's much more to be done to educate our youth about this.
Now, Evim Sahab, very interesting analysis about the Kashmir. I mean, look at what they're doing about the water issue. When we talk about the national security, sir, it is not only about securing the borders or looking after the frontiers or the internal security for that matter, or external security for that matter. It's about your food security, it's about the water security, and then the environment issue comes in as well. Now, sir, looking at what they're doing regarding the water, I remember when we used to go to Lahore, these rivers were full of water. And now when I show my kids, sir, there's hardly any water. So over a period of time, they've planned it out very smartly. And unfortunately, thanks to a gentleman, Jamaat Ali Shah, who literally, he was, I think, Pakistani traitor who ran away, and we couldn't do much about him, sir. But the point is, at the end of the day, sir, when you talk about the food security and the water security, that is going to be a problem and a half. Maybe another 5 to 10 years from now, sir. Don't you think? I mean, that is something which we really need to sort of
again, I think
tell our future generations that this is what is happening.
We need to tell our present generation as well. There's again lack of information given out by the government to our people. What India claims is that whatever it is doing within the ambit of the Indus Water Treaty. And
in accordance with the World Bank.
And they are not going beyond that. Our government hasn't come out very clearly. I mean, we are giving emotional and sentimental and biased kind of statements which are not factual. I think we need to come out. We need to tell the people what does the Indus Water Basin Treaty says, and what is India actually doing. Is it going beyond that? If it's not going beyond that, then probably then we need to look at our own alternative resources. Presently, I think the World Bank itself froze the ongoing inquiry into the Indus Water Treaty, because they said that both the countries need to talk to each other about this thing. So I think there is again lack of clarity from our leadership, our technocrats on the issue of Indus Water Treaty. We need to bring it out clearly, and we need to educate our people that where is it that we have gone wrong, and where is it that India is exceeding its own
Because
limits.
I tell you one thing, let's suppose CPEC really kicks off well, and Pakistan within a span of let's say 15 years becomes something like Singapore. But at the end of the day, no matter how much money you have in your account, you can import everything, sir. You can't import water. That's the point. I mean, I think it's something which we really need to talk about. Now, Mushaal, talking about the ongoing atrocities, obviously new methods are being used by the Indian forces. Don't you think they are trying to set, or rather set a standard in a way that, look, if you will come out on the road and if you will demand or for your legitimate right regarding the independence, this is what we're going to do with you. We'll blind you, or we'll kill you, or we'll rape women, or we'll pick them up, and then, you know, they'll be missing in action. What about these mass graves and all? I mean, you talk about any family and there is one victim in that. This is exactly what is happening out there. Do you think this is their design that suppress them to the extent that they should just keep quiet and stay indoors?
Yeah, terrorize them.
Terrorize
kill
them to that
abduct
level,
them,
yeah.
rape them, maim them, whatever, burn them, do whatever you want to. But yes, this is the state policy over there. Unfortunately, it's a very strong obsession with Kashmir of the Indian state, and they prefer denial over rationality. I mean, the denial is in three forms, in my opinion. First is the Indian government. Second is the the media, which is owned by the the business tycoons in India. And thirdly, it is it is the mainstream political parties in IOK. I mean, they give this very beautiful picture to the center that we will terrorize the people, we'll scare them, we'll pass slogans
PDP,
like
People's
Boli
Democratic
nahi,
Party,
Boli, and a healing touch and different fake slogans. But actually, they are creating a ground to take away all the political and also the economic rights. You're talking about the water. I mean, water comes from Kashmir, but there's hardly any light over there. So there's no electricity, and all the electricity is supplied to Delhi and to other areas of India, and the water supplies are also very little. And then talking about the economic blockade and different kind of medical emergency over there, all these things are basically tactics to break the will of the people. And just recently, the Indians, they burned so many schools in the valley, and they tried to blame the the freedom fighters over there, that the youth have burned their schools.
I mean, this is their old tactic, yeah.
Yes, the way they burned the temples in the 1980s, they're trying to replicate the same kind of policy right now. But reality is that whatever propaganda that's going on right now, the propagandistic approach of the Modi government and I would say the machoism policy of Modi, be it the Balochistan rhetoric, be it the demonetization, the fake surgical strikes. I mean, it's just like a teenager who is riding a bike, a heavy bike, and then just facing severe injuries. I think Modi is just doing the same kind of stunts right now, and he will definitely fail in all these fake propagandistic approaches. But the point is that no matter what they do, we're not giving up. They can't hold us. I mean, Indian held Kashmir.
You haven't given up in the last 70 years.
They can't hold us. They cannot administer us. They cannot control us. With the maximum that they can do is put occupation forces over there. Even then, they don't know what they're going to do with us. I mean, they put all these media curbs. I mean, phone lines are cut. They torture, abduct. But the sentiment is growing stronger by the day. So it's basically, it is their defeat. But yes, it hurts us that, how much more do we have to bleed? Humanity is bleeding. And just on Human Rights Day, my question was that there's no right to celebrate Human Rights Day when you have gross when human rights are bleeding right now in Indian occupied Kashmir, and it's the oldest pending conflict in the UN resolution. So UN doesn't have a right to celebrate. What is the celebration about? The world is so unsafe. So we need to strategize and need to make very strong kind of policies all year round, not just after the post Burhan Wani
Incident.
uprising. This is a constant. Yes, sometimes tides are high, sometimes they're low, but the sentiment is always there. And these sacrifices, these human rights violations that are going on in IOK, it's not just human rights violations, they're happening for a reason, for their right to freedom. And they're not giving that up. Just today, Yasin gave this interview to this international channel, and they were asking him that, aren't you people sick and tired of giving calendars of strikes and protests outside? He said, no, we're not. The day that people decide that they don't want to follow the calendars will automatically, they will stop. There's no fear for them. They're coming out on the roads. They're breaking the army curfews. They're burning the schools. So it is all depends on the will of the people, and that is very much there. And that needs to be exposed to the world.
If an issue is prolonged for that long, it gets diluted. Do you agree with that statement?
No, I don't agree with that. And the words that the media uses, uprising, unrest, it's a revolution. It's a sentiment. It's a battle for freedom. How can that sentiment die? You've given the maximum sacrifices. Every Kashmiri family
I don't think
has
even
given their
when people
soul
say that
and heart
right
and
for
body and
self-determination,
everything.
I think forget about self-determination. It's a right to live and breathe.
Right to breathe, right
Yes.
to mourn, right to
Because
breathe,
if
right
somebody,
to see. They're
because
trying to do
because
everything.
you exactly know what's going on out there.
Yes.
We get information from people like you or friends who are working there or journalists or from people who are living there. And it's a living hell, as earlier mentioned by the gentleman here, that it's the largest prison in the world.
Yes.
Because you go out and you're being killed. Remember
past
that
69
this
years it's a
little
prison.
cute-looking girl was looking outside from the window, sir, and she was shot on the face. Can you imagine? And she won't be able to see for the rest of her life. Isn't that tragic? This is the unfortunate part, that the world doesn't know about it. Now, sir, Donald Trump today, we heard that the electoral in USA, they have they've signed it, that Donald Trump is going to be the next president. Well, sir, he did talk about sorting out certain issues, but when we look back in history, that's what Obama said as well. And he took the name of Kashmir. He said, we'll make a council. He did talk about Palestinian issue. He did mention about Guantanamo Bay. Nothing happened. So that means that the President of the United States of America, obviously, though he is the most powerful man, but there are certain factors which also guide him, sir. In this particular case, sir, what sort of a strategy have we evolved or made to sort of put the right picture of the issues? When you talk about the two states, two nuclear powers, Kashmir is a nuclear flashpoint. So we need to have a strategy also, sir.
There's definitely a strategy. I think the policies, they are not spelled out in the public, but you have to see the actions, what's happening. You have seen Mr. Tariq Fatmi, he visited United States.
He was there for a week, yeah?
Yeah, no, more than that, I think. And he had very useful interaction with the various segments of the society. He met the parliamentarians, from both sides. He met the media people. He had extensive interaction with the media people over there. Then he met also the civil society members, think tanks. He also met the Pakistani diaspora over there. I think these are the ways that we sensitize, we keep on conveying our viewpoint on various issues on top of it, which is the issue of Kashmir. So he has at length spoken about Kashmir issue over there when he went there. Not just him. If you look at our high commissioners, our envoys in various capitals of the world, you will see that one activity which takes place over there in the shape of civil society holding an event to highlight the situation in Indian occupied Kashmir is a manifestation of our policy approach, our strategy. Now, we remain determined on this. It is our firm belief that their sacrifices will not go in vain, definitely not. Today or maybe tomorrow, they will be heard. The Kashmiris' voice will be heard, and India will have to pay for its crimes which it has perpetrated against those innocent Kashmiris, especially the children, the women, and we are not even talking about those people who they have actually abducted, they have taken away, there are more than 10,000 now. And we have no idea, their families have no idea
Where they are.
whether they are
They've been killed or they've
alive
been
or
in
not.
custody, yeah?
I always recall those authors who have written about these kind of situations. Dalrymple is one, in whose book he has very candidly mentioned just before when the people over there under this discovered the mass graves, he said that those who were taken away by the security forces were found tortured. Their tortured bodies were found in the streams, in wells, in various places, in jungles. So I think this is what is happening over there. This is what we need to highlight. This is a good effort on your part as well, that you have invited us. We are talking about Kashmir, and this is what needs to be done constantly and continuously. You have very rightly pointed out that we need to actually talk to our youth, because lest they forget as to why we are fighting for Kashmir. It's not just Kashmiris who are fighting. We are also fighting for Kashmir. We have fought wars with India for Kashmir. There have been wars with India. And we have actually been targeted by India and Indian friends just because of this issue of Kashmir. They are trying to deter us, and we will never be deterred by their propaganda, their the approaches.
Zakaria sir, one more point. I mean, when you talk about the BJP government, obviously we do understand that they have a certain design and they follow this philosophy of RSS and all. Today, I'll just share something very interesting. A boy was picked up by the police, Indian police I'm talking about, because he was a fan of Shahid Afridi. Just on the account, I love Virat Kohli, and I openly said, because he's a great batsman. Can you imagine, just because he was wearing, there was this picture of Shahid Afridi on his shirt, sir, and he was picked up by the police. Now, this is the mindset and the attitude that they have.
There are numerous incidents actually.
So
numerous incidents.
Can you imagine?
You just go to this JNU.
How difficult is it for you, sir, as a spokesperson, or because you're in the Foreign Office, to engage with these people? So with this kind of a mindset, isn't that a task and a half actually?
No, engage who?
The High Commissioner or the Deputy High Commissioner or the other people working there, sir. And whenever you summon them and you tell them, I mean, what kind of attitude do you get, sir?
No, we do. Actually, we do it constantly. Actually, and if you're talking about the Indian officials that we should talk to and engage
imagine
with
what happened when Sardar Aziz Sahab was there attending the Hearts of Asia conference, sir.
You see,
and I for the first time, I saw Basit Saab in that kind of a mood, sir. To be very honest, he is such a humble man, such a down-to-earth man. And he was like, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
More they do it, actually, the more they are exposing themselves. You're talking about this thing. I was just, I was part of a conversation where I came across a fact which was shocking, that people talk about minorities' rights, and look at what happened in India. In last 1.5 years, they have burned down 200 churches over there. You have seen just a video which was which went viral, where they have a Christian woman has been burnt alive just for visiting some temple or so. I think these are the kind of things which are happening over there. But these, you have to go back a little in the recent past, where in 1984, if you look at what the strength of this BJP was, they had just 3 seats, and they have thrived just on the basis of hatred against minorities, especially Muslims.
Yes.
And today they are
Muslims and Pakistan.
They are in majority. So that speaks of the mindset of the majority.
And they end up forming the government with the People's Democratic Party in Kashmir also.
We are not really focusing on them because they may be incorrigible. So we are reaching out to the international community to sensitize them about their belligerence, their insensitivity to the fact how they have actually heated up the working boundary, how they have heated up LOC without realizing that in their quest to divert attention from the actual issue of
That's
Kashmir.
what we call changing the headlines.
Yeah. So
simple as that. You change the headlines.
They're not mindful of what they are entering into, that they have endangered the entire population of this region, because they are trying to create space for war. They are trying to provoke people. They are trying to provoke Pakistan. Pakistan has been acting very maturely, and we will continue to do that within the parameters, within the red lines which we know. If they cross, we know how to deal with them. But right now, in the larger interest of the peace and security, maintaining peace and security in the region, we have adopted a very mature approach, and we are reaching out to the international community to sensitize them on Indian attitude and the way.
So one
India
last
are
quick
running
comment
its
before I
policies.
come to AVM subs. Do you think that the Prime Minister, I remember he announced that certain parliamentarians they're going to go to various capitals and they'll present the case of Kashmir, sir. How effective was that approach?
Well, I think this was a very, I would say, innovative approach. It did not happen at such a large scale earlier. There had been envoys going, reaching out to various capitals in the past as well. But this time it was a more coherent and very organized effort. And I think what they did was they reached out to those segments of the society who were otherwise not really reachable. For example, the government officials, they may not get that kind of opportunity so often and so candidly to put across their viewpoint, because they reached out to the people of their type, because they reached out to the people who were elected by the popular vote, and these are the people who were elected by the popular vote. So they carried the sentiments of the people of Pakistan to put across their viewpoint to the people, to those category of people who actually are there because of the support of masses in their country. So through them, they were conveying the message to the masses over there.
Now, sir, it's been 70 years.
And to the legislature.
That's correct, sir. A new method or a new way or maybe a new approach needs to be designed, sir. Through media, through effective policies by the government, or from various other means, sir. What do you think, sir, what needs to be done now to make it, because this is 2016, this is not 1916, sir. Things have different, times have changed. Look at the alliance when you talk about the Americans and the Indians, sir, the kind of pacts they have signed, the defense pacts, the kind of Indian, I would say, their foreign policy or their approach, especially with the Muslim countries, sir. They always supported us, Saudi Arabia, Iran, you name it, they always supported us for Kashmir, sir. But it seems like as if things are getting tilted towards them, sir.
Well, we failed to have a foreign minister for the last 3.5 years. That speaks of the strength of our foreign policy initiatives. You mentioned Donald Trump's election or the election as the president. In future, the American policies or US policies in the region, as in the past, would be governed by the relationship with China and not for any other reason. So in that perspective, when you look at the bigger perspective, the American and the Indian nexus becomes stronger. And this is evident by the appointment of Nikki Haley as the envoy to UN by Mr. Trump. Miss Nikki Haley is a Indian American. And that speaks his mind, and that clearly gives indications to us. And I think our Foreign Office needs to tie up its belt.
Even the American ambassador in Delhi is also an Indian American.
Yeah, so our Foreign Office needs to tie up its belts and put up its act together. I think we need to have a very coherent strategy. I wish Mr. Fatmi had met Mr. Trump's, President-elect Trump's team over there, and probably would have been able to put his viewpoint or the viewpoint of the Pakistani government over there.
But sir, when you hear Mr. Trump during the campaign saying that we'll use India not against Pakistan, but we'll use India whenever we want to sort of sort things out in Pakistan. We'll engage India. We'll pressurize Pakistan through India.
There are two burning issues in the region that Pakistan does not see eye to eye with USA, and those are Afghanistan and China. And on those two issues, we have our own national interest to pursue, and USA has its own interest to pursue in the region. And probably somewhere Pakistan would have to devise a strategy that how can we maintain very good relationship with USA despite maintaining our friendship with China and despite having our own national interest pursued in Afghanistan. I think this is where the hard point or the hard ground comes up for our foreign office. I'm sure they must be working at it because the coming days are not so promising for the foreign policy of Pakistan.
All right, Mushaal, let's take the debate further. What needs to be done to make the approach more effective, more efficient, more meaningful?
Parallel approach internationally, also aggressive lobbying, and within the country target the youth through universities, colleges, establish Kashmir debating clubs over there, regular meetings, conferences, seminars in universities, and establish more think tanks which should be sponsored by the state. I mean, state-of-the-art think tanks within, just like the Pak China Center. I said this in your previous show as well, that we should have some huge, big Pak Kashmir Center also, somewhere in the red zone where all the diplomats can go, and there should be a library on Kashmir, on the heritage, on the culture, on the politics, on the freedom struggle, and their rich culture over there to attract them and show their videos. I mean, that should be there all the time, even on Sundays, on weekends, it should be open. And proper facilities and all the experts and intellectuals on Kashmir should contribute.
Reminder.
Yeah, a constant reminder that it's on the radar of the Pakistani state, that this is the core issue with, and it is the jugular vein of Pakistan. I mean, Pakistan is already doing a lot for the Kashmiris, but the way the Indians are going, especially after the Modi government, the demography changes that are taking place, and then how they're trying to rapidly change the population ratios over there. So we need to, and these delegations, this was an innovative idea. But yes, we need to accelerate the speed, and we need to keep on board the real stakeholders.
One of the
also.
parliamentarian,
victims,
Rana
yes.
Afzal, told me that he was sent to France. And he said when I went there and I spoke to their legislators, they were surprised because they had no clue, to be very honest. So the story needs to be told.
And
People
yes,
should
and
know.
yes, when we are talking about the bloodshed that's going on in occupied Jammu and Kashmir, I mean, their softest tool is their media and their Bollywood, the Indian.
Absolutely.
And right now, this is a viewpoint coming from the Kashmiris. We don't want any kind of bad ties between India and Pakistan. We want improvement in that. But I mean, I hope if their cinema does not start, their dances, their movies, and we are being blinded.
You're
so
screening
then,
their movies.
Then I don't blame
over
the youth.
Then
I would not blame
people who are wearing
then I would not blame the youth of Pakistan if they're confused.
We lifted the ban. We lifted the ban just
it
yesterday.
should happen on equality.
But that is what I'm saying. Now,
Normalization-
sir, Nafees, because I was just told that we've got just last couple of minutes, sir. The point is that a lot more needs to be done, but a lot more needs to be done in a very smarter way. So, what would be the approach of the foreign officer? We have seen what happened to Satrajit Sahab there, or the High Commissioner for that matter, or their approach towards Pakistan. They don't even leave a single forum where they don't malign Pakistan, sir. Whether it's about economics, or it's about sports, or you name it, and they're after you, sir.
Well, I think as far as Kashmir is concerned, well, that's between India and Pakistan. There are many territories where they are trying to do bad things or malign Pakistan. I think that we will handle, that's not an issue. The issue is of Kashmir, and the issue within the Kashmir is of human rights violations. And we are right now focusing on highlighting the human rights violations because we want these bloodshed to be stopped. We want India to pay for the atrocities over there. And I think for this we are concentrating hugely. Just mention one point, that Fatmi Saab's visit was not the last visit, and nor would be the visit of the envoys who went there. These are the things which will constantly happen in one way or the other, in one manifestation or the other. I think our strategy is working very well. The only thing is that you mentioned about the changing paradigm, the shifting alliances and the new partnerships emerging. These are the things which are actually at play at this point in time, and they are impacting on the way forward for these regional issues.
All right.
And I think this is where we are concentrating, and I'm very sure that if we continue with these efforts, with the help of
All right.
the people of Kashmir and people of Pakistan and the international community, especially the civil society, I think we'll achieve that
Anyway,
goal.
Zakaria, thank you very much. Mushaal, thank you very much. Ibn Sahib, it was a pleasure having you. I'll just give you a quick example. I was told by one of our friends that there are more than 200 Chinese who are doing PhD on CPAC. So I think more people need to study about Kashmir also, and why not to have a program of a PhD on Kashmir. I'm sure there should be one, but people should know the problem so that they can talk about it, and they have enough knowledge and sort of an idea, how to take it forward. And there are so many forums you can talk about this issue. Anyway, that's all we have for this half. I'll see you tomorrow. Till then, take good care of yourself. Khuda Hafiz.